Hello YouTube, this is Warren Marshall, and today we're going to talk about working off axis in MODO. This was inspired by some client work I was doing this week where I was working on a column type shape, and the column had detail on the axis facing directions, but it also had stuff I needed to do on the edges, those 45-degree corners. And I was defining my coordinate systems using the Workplane or using like a custom action center, and that was working, but it can be a little limiting because they drop and you have to set them up again. And while they're set up, you can't use them for anything else. They're sort of locked into whatever they're defining. So instead, we're going to use a mesh item in the mesh list as a reference coordinate system. So basically, well, I'll just show you here in a second. Okay, so let's say that this column mesh is the column that I'm working on. I'm trying to work on the axis aligned faces, but I'm also trying to work on these weird little side pieces that are on the 45-degree angles. So the way I'm going to set that up is with a mesh item reference coordinate system. You'll see here in a second. So the key to this is this column over here on the mesh item list that you might have kind of glazed over here. Every time you looked at it, but this is what this is for. You'll see. So I'm going to make a new mesh item, and I'm going to drop a cube into it. The polygons don't matter. We're going to delete these in a second. This is just so I can see the mesh. And I'm going to center it on the world origin. And turn off the column for easier viewing. Now I need to rotate this 45 degrees. The important thing is to rotate the item, not the polygons, the verts, the edges, none of that stuff, the mesh item. So be in mode 5, item mode. So select it, rotate it 45 degrees. And you'll know you've done this right because you can look in the item properties over here on the right hand side and you'll see 45 degrees is listed there. Well, negative 45, whatever. As long as it's correctly oriented, it's fine. So now that I've got that orientation in there, the polygons don't matter and I can just delete them. Or I can just hide the mesh. Whichever way you want to go. So to actually use that now, all you have to do is come down here in this widget column and click that space beside that mesh. Now when I do that, you'll see the widget appears beside that mesh. And MODO tells us down here in the bottom right corner, reference mesh. So it's telling me that the item called mesh is my reference coordinate system. And you'll see changes here in the primary viewport. The whole working environment has shifted 45 degrees. And actually, there's a better way to show this off. Let me make another mesh item. And I'll throw a couple of spheres and things out here, just so you can see how this really affects everything. So there's two meshes in the scene now. And I'm going to turn my reference coordinate system back on. So see how the entire scene shifts 45 degrees? Now all the tools and everything acts like this is the default coordinate system, and it's super handy because now I can just select, this face and hit move, and now the default widget is perfectly aligned with this axis. And just toggling this little widget icon turns it back and forth, and it's super nice. You can set up a whole bunch of these mesh items for 30 degrees or 60 or whatever kind of crazy stuff you're doing with your mesh. But yeah, that really helped me out this week. Hopefully you can find a use for it, and I'll see you in the next video.